Welcome to Verbal Pick Radio, where we give you a verbal image of life, and we are everyday people. Like to welcome y'all to the show. Today is a day that we're doing a show prior to a future show that we're getting ready to do, and that will be featuring Sister Pebbles and Brother Low Key, and we're going to be talking about the different terminologies dealing with black people or the black race or the Moorish people or Moorish race, but we get into the labels and identities and terms used to describe us as a people, right? So prior to doing that, I just want to go over melanin real quick because melanin is it's so important that melanin that you have in your skin. And it doesn't matter the content as far as the amount, but it does matter the energy. It matters the function, and it also matters how you use it and the benefit for having it. We have been put down so much to where we're not using our melanin. We're not using that gift. We're not using. It's put it like this. It's like having a technological device and you haven't read the instructions to it, and so you're not getting all out of it that you could because you don't know what all it details. So we want to try to enlighten you on this fascinating substance, chemical, oldest substance on the planet called melanin. All right, so y'all just bear with me. I'm gonna, and we're not gonna be long, right? I just want to take you into something. We went over this, but it's important for me to go over this again so we can drive the point home, right? Check this out. Here we go. Cells can reproduce and pass on genetic information from one generation to the next. Right. Now, every DNA genetic coding, I don't want to explain this again, that's in your blood, it carries on through your sperm. It fertilizes that egg. Child is born. Blood flows through the child's body. And part of your memory cells, DNA, and what you've experienced goes into that child. That's why it says the sin of the fathers will be passed on to the children, but also the blessings of the fathers will be passed on to the children. As above, so below. Right. That's why when you go to the doctor asks you, is there anyone in your family history that suffered from this? Because there's a greater chance that you will suffer from it as well, right? But on the flip side, on the good side too, if you have had good genes, good health, and they ate right and so forth, then they'll produce a child with those same traits. And if it continues to follow the same pattern of good diet and good thoughts and good minds, then it'll pass it on down to another generation. But if it was created from a man and woman who was depressed, down on their luck, couldn't get it together, just bad mindset, then that also would pass down in the child as well. You get what I'm saying? Okay, we go back again. So it states, and this is from a medical point. Cells can reproduce and pass on genetic information from one generation to the next. That's another thing too on that is that's why they try to keep implementing the same mindset of slavery within these movies, right? To serve two purposes. One, it reminds the colonizer and his children through generations the position that they had, and also two, it confirms the position that the slaves had. But as an adverse effect, sometimes with knowledge, people would get upset the fact that their ancestor was treated that way, and it causes a backlash, right? But sometimes the intent of these movie producers and these old shows too is at the same time to give energy and uplift their oppressors. So I got to read that again to drive the point home. Cells can reproduce and pass on genetic information from one generation to the next, metabolize matter and energy, and can evolve, right? But explaining how the process originated is one of the great problems of science. The vague idea that life emerged spontaneously from mixtures of molecules in the probiotic era has no sustenance. It cannot be explained. And also, we got to add the word ether in there. It wasn't in there, but in these ethers or these gases that life was created out of. Not even by chance, right? Apparently, there is no way to explain the origin of life by natural means to date. The creation of life from inanimate compounds is a mystery that seems to deepen every day more. But suppose there is a substance that seems to represent the boundary between an inanimate compound and another animated. An inanimate compound that tends to approach energy sources and surrounds them. A compound that does not present structure like any of the cell prokaryote, which is prokaryote, Prokryote, or eukaryote cells. A boundary compound between the living and the non-living that does not show changes in its structure, and something that could be considered evolutionary despite billions of years of elapsed time. Meaning, as time moves forward billions of years and even trillions of years, let's say 76 trillion years ago, it still matters, and it still exists, and it's still functioning today. A molecule whose proven stability is 160 million years old, and actually it's older than that. A substance that seems to mark the frontier between the living and the non-living matter. I mean, this structure here, this substance here is so powerful. Oh, man. If only y'all can get in the study of melanin, it is so powerful. I mean, it is so much attached to that melanin and what you can do with it if you just study it. But we're going to help you here, though. Widely disseminated in the universe, right? And in all living beings. It's widely disseminated in the universe, meaning it's everywhere throughout, not just on Earth, it's throughout the universe, right? And it's in all living beings, and whose main characteristic is that it is capable of absorbing visible and invisible light, right? It's capable of absorbing the light you see and the light you don't see. I mean, that is powerful, right? And dissipating the energy absorbed by disassociating the water molecules. Wow, it can disassociate the water molecules. It can separate light and it can absorb it. I mean, what a powerful substance. Such as chlorophyll in plants, that's melanin. If we want to explain the origin of life arising from a substance with the characteristics above noted and others, then it is possible that the much sought after explanation of the origin of life is very close to being achieved. The name of the molecule concerned is melanin. Melanin. Melanin is the source of life. That dark melanin is what out of triple darkness, is what the Creator used to clothe that energy. You call it skin, organ, right? He clothed himself in melanin, right? Because melanin is the oldest and one of the most powerful substance in the universe. It absorbs light that you see and light that you do not see. How powerful is that? And you got people walking around ashamed of their God's gift. You got people in Africa, in the Caribbeans, in the Americas, right, want to get cream and certain substances to try to lighten their melanin, getting rid of what the Creator gave you naturally so you can look like those who are void of melanin is an oxymoron, and it doesn't add up at all. But that shows you the state of which we are in, right? Shows you the mindset that we have and who gave us that mindset other than the all well-known oppressor, right? Check this out. There are diverse theories about the origin of life on Earth. Perhaps it started with an electric spark that generate amino acids and sugars from an atmosphere loaded with water, methane, ammonia, and hydrogen. And over millions of years, larger and more complex molecules could form. Other possibility is that the molecules of life met on clay due to DNA are relatively well preserved in those conditions, or maybe life began at the bottom of the sea at deep sea vents or submarine hydrothermal vents, those spewing hydrogen-rich molecules, or under layers of ice that perhaps protected organic compounds in the water below from UV rays, or better, the RNA world, because RNA can create DNA and proteins and has on-off switch functions for some genes. However, scientists calculate that it would take much longer than the age of this universe for randomly generated RNA molecules to evolve sufficiently to achieve the modern level of sophistication of the vast biological complexity on Earth today. Right. In other words, it would take forever. Furthermore, synthetic RNA created with modern technology trying to prove of the concept of RNA, of an RNA world, bear little resemblance to anything anyone has ever isolated from a living system. The finding that all the enzymes involved in genetic code translation have virtually identical cores or enzymes suggests simply ancestors that evolved to give rise to more complex life forms. However, the main question is simply carried back. How did these peptides originate with so accurate catalytic capacity? Right? So what they basically saying is, this is all they bear witness to is this is an intelligent design. This is intelligent design that we're living in, and the substance that started it all was melanin. So we're gonna read this a little bit more. I mean, this is so profound. But I'm doing this so we can start training our minds to think on a higher scale or on a different scale, so we can look at the melanin that's in that pertains within our body because the melanin, put it like this, melanin is like an energetic or energy antenna that connects you to this universe, right? And so when you are thinking on a higher thought plane, you pull higher energy and higher things to yourself as a magnet, right? When you on a low vibratory frequency, then you produce and you create fat off that type of energy. So you would have to ask yourself, what is it that you want to see? Not what's given to you in the media. So they throw a negative movie, I'd say The Maid or The Butler, or a movie where we gangbang and killing each other. And then you go out and visualize that in your mind out of a melanated body. Then the universe finna shoot that right back to you. Bam, you're going to get more and more and more of it because you are what? You all of you are gods, children of the Most High God. So you calling into existence your own demise. Because why? You have that melanin, and that melanin serves as an energy antenna within this universe. And so your thoughts travel from out of that melanin, and then it goes and creates what your mind's eye sees, and there you have it. Whether it's good or bad, you create more of it yourself by what you determine or your definition of what's positive and what's negative, right? So if you're in a situation in an area and there's just constantly turmoil and chaos and murder and shooting and whatnot, you want to see that. And then you got together with a group of others in that same environment area, and all y'all want to see the same thing. So all of you all are producing the same thing, and it continues and it continues, right? But the problem is if someone comes in with a different mindset and says, you know what, let me start focusing my energy on something else, that person would have to get another person and then start a wave and then to override what was already there. But the thing is that is your oppressor or your colonizer set that in motion and loves to see it, and he will implement people with that mindset in your area to keep it going for his purpose and not your purpose. And anybody that comes from the outside in with a new ideology, a new mindset, they try to eject that one like cancer, or they try to push them out the way so business can continue as usual, right? But, wow, check this out. It's a new day, you know? So that old frame of mind is slowly dying out. But now, hold on. I got to do this real quick. Hold on. I got to do this real quick for you all, right? Before I go, right? In proton numbers, atomic number or Z, right? We could say that the coming and going of the protons between the different chemical elements is determined by several factors. But one of the important ones is the available energy from melanin. Depending on the balance of the physicochemical, which is PHYSICO chemical variables, present the formation of the necessary for life chemical elements will be given in such or such manner. It is possible that from hydrogen, melanin can give rise to many elements, mainly those related to life. For example, carbon or 6 hydrogens together, oxygen 8 protons, which would explain the presence of water and oxygen on planet Earth. Therefore, glucose is the universal precursor of any organic matter in plants and animals. By the carbon chains it contains and the order so precise of them. Once it enters the body, the carbon chains are transformed in several and precise ways. This is elongated, rotated, combined, section, etc., but always in the same way and with the same exactance over millions of times and millions of years. But our body can only do it with glucose and derivatives, and its derivatives similar and related. If we administer carbon alone, for example, mineral, without having the sequence of glucose, simply our body cannot metabolize it. So it's telling you anything that you enter in that melanin into would give it life. So say you'll say, well, damn, this melanated person had a child with this non-melanated person, but yet the child is okay. Put it like this: the child is running, it's jumping, it's moving, it's doing things that the father, if the father is white, is saying, "Wow, look at this," because they saying, "Well, what's going on?" Well, no, it's that melanin that entered into that child from the mother, and there you have it. You know, that's just speaking on. It's not the. How can I say this? It's not the race. It's not a race and fighting and people talking about civil war, whatever. It's that intelligence of that melanin that's embodied in the person that people are having a problem with. But God created himself out of that triple darkness melanin, right? So you can't blame those on the planet that have it. Okay, let's get into some more. The atoms or molecules that the body requires to replenish every day are the biomolecules that for one reason or another are degraded and are no longer useful or recyclable. Our body takes from food, but they must have a similar story to ours. That is to have been formed based on the photosynthesis, either chlorophyll or melanin, right? Photosynthesis, either chlorophyll or melanin. Our body cannot metabolize substances that go so back in evolution. It must have a certain degree of previous processing like our metabolism. The carbon atoms and chains of the molecules of glucose are easily assimilated, and from there our body builds the biomolecules it requires to constantly replace them in one or another tissue or cell of the organism. Glucose is important as a universal precursor of biomass that is not normally excreted and which can be found in urinalysis. And urinalysis are compounds that derive from it and or its respective metabolites. Something similar we could point out the sodium, as it could be considered as one of the main building blocks but of the electrolytes for the reason mentioned above. And now that the role of glucose has been discerned as a source of biomass but not energy, we can remark the role of water as the substance par excellence to complete the process of transformation of light into chemical energy through dissociation without detriment to the other biological functions of it. So they're transferring water into a chemical substance, but you got to have melanin to do all that, because melanin is part of this universe, and you're not studying yourself in your melanin to understand the power that you obtain within your being. You walking around here with the greatest substance known ever on this planet, and you're around here depressed. Wow. Wow. We're going to go, hold on. The origin of the chemical elements in the stellar space can also be explained by the melanin, as these form large masses of the size of galaxies or more. The formation of chemical elements has ceased to be a monopoly of the stars. Living organisms can also do it, and apparently on a daily basis. Biology is entering into a new era. The discovery that molecular hydrogen is the source of energy of the cell, and that it obtains it by disassociating the molecule of the water. Let me go back. Molecular hydrogen is the source of energy of the cell, and that it obtains it by disassociating the molecule of the water, which implies the need to deeply reorganize our concept about cell metabolism. Glucose cannot provide the energy that its own metabolism requires, and only contributes with the carbon chain that our body uses to synthesize the organic molecules that make up us. But the energy required to impel and carry out the complex biochemical reactions necessary to the interior of the organism and the cells is obtained from the visible and invisible light. Right? Melanin has gone from being a simple solar filter to be the central molecule of life. Melanin is the central molecule of life. Do you get it? We're going to keep going, though. Any changes that occur inside the cell or the organism as a whole, it depends entirely on the chemical energy that emanates from the melanin. Read that again. Melanin has gone from being a simple solar filter to be the central molecule of light. Any changes that occur inside the cell or the organism as a whole, it depends entirely on the chemical energy that emanates from the melanin in the form of molecular hydrogen, molecular hydrogen and high energy electrons. The approximately 7,000 chemical reactions are already described in the literature about cellular metabolism will have to be rethought based on the energy of melanin and not glucose. The glucose molecule, without the presence of the energy of the melanin, it would be an inert molecule, or even more, it would not even exist, because the formation of the glucose, which is an exact process, requires quite exact energies like those that come from the melanin. The way in which the melanin disassociates and reassociates the water molecule, that is, liquid gas, could be represented as 0 and 1, like a binary code, which abound in nature. Therefore, it is possible that the melanin not only delivers energy, but also information. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Look, the drum, melanated person beating the drum, talking drums, another person picked up. Melanated people could pick up on each other's thoughts no matter where we were at on the planet, right? But somebody studied us and knew that, and they found the way to disassociate or separate or divide and conquer amongst us, and we what? Fell for it. But why did we fall for it, though? The reason why we fell for it was because we saw something new and we wanted to study something new, and they understood that, so they led us further and further down the rabbit hole till we got so far down the rabbit hole, we was lost and didn't know how to pull ourselves back out, right? So it had to take someone who knew both sides to go in, that loved us enough, that can go in that rabbit hole, pick us up, and lead us right out the rabbit hole, stand us up, and put us back on our mission, right? And that's where we at today. That is where we at today. I mean, I'm just simply saying, right? This is MedCrave. Step into the world of research. You know, as a people, until we start studying that compound, that substance, that chemical, that matter, that for the first, how can I say, the first source of information, melanin. Until we start studying in depth and understand what you're walking around with. You know, they got Jamie Foxx is in a Netflix movie titled Power, and they take these pills and they get certain superpowers, and they able to do certain things by taking this pill, right? Yeah, I already got melanin. You just haven't tapped into your powers and what all you can do. Because that's the whole game, to keep you out and away from realizing the power that your melanin carries. And when I say powers in melanin, by no means am I saying a certain type of melanin. I'll tell you what, melanin is black, melanin is red, melanin is brown, melanin is even in an orange type human color. So don't get it twisted at all and say, well, cold black, he talking about just a certain, melanin covers it all, right? If you got melanin in your body, just understand the gift that you have. Research and study it, and you got to try it out. You try it out. Use your melanin to communicate with this universe, and it will shock you. Verbal Pick Radio, we out.